Hi and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn and got another one-off show for you guys. The Great American Beer Fest was just this past weekend, and I was listening to the awards ceremony live online, which was very cool, and I noticed that this beer right here in front of me actually won a gold medal. This is the Logsdon Seizoen Bretta out of Oregon, and Oregon, and I thought, well, hey, that sounds like a great next show to do. So I'm doing it. So this beer, one that I've certainly never had before. I did a little bit of research on the brewery. They're out of Hood River, Oregon. They distribute pretty much only to Oregon from what I can understand. We have quite a bit of Oregon watchers, and you guys are pretty well, you're pretty gung-ho about your local beers. I get, I think, more requests for Oregon beers than any other. More people from Texas have sent me beers, but more people request Oregon beers. Unfortunately, in Chicago, we don't get a ton. There's a lot of really tiny microbreweries and craft breweries in Oregon. In fact, I think Portland is far and away the #1 city for brew pubs and breweries in general. And a lot of them, you know, are just consumed by the immediate vicinity, so it doesn't really make its way out. We get some of the bigger ones out here that have wider distribution across the country in general, like Rogue and Widmer and stuff like that. But I know not too much after that, unfortunately. But anyway, the beer that I have here is from Logsdon, and it's called Logsdon Organic Farmhouse Ales. I believe, yep, they are certified USDA organic. And they make about 5 or 6 beers, not a whole heck of a lot, all of them in this large format bottle. And they're called farmhouse ales, so they do, you know, Saison style beers predominantly. And I forget what the name of the beer is. It's called Saison something. Is their normal flagship beer, and it is kind of a golden farmhouse ale in the Belgian style that uses that is bottle conditioned with pear juice. So normally bottle conditioning is when you put a little bit of yeast, or if there's already yeast in there, then an additional food source for the yeast. Typically that's just sugar or honey or something like that, a fermentable to kind of reinvigorate the yeast a little bit, get them reactivated, and start making carbonation. And it's, you know, bottle carbonated rather than force carbonated, where they can actually just inject CO2 into the bottle, which a lot of breweries, you know, craft and other, do as well. With the Seizoen Bretta, what they do is they use a Brettanomyces yeast. I don't know if it's 100% Brett or if it's in addition. My guess is that they probably add Brett as well as regular brewer's yeast. I'd be pretty surprised if it was 100% Brett beer. Let me look. Yeah, I don't think it says. Yeah. In fact, I think the labels, this doesn't even say anything about the Brett. Anyway, so this beer just won gold medal for, I think, American style Brett beer at the 2012 GABF. That's a pretty good category. I'm sure there's a lot of really good Brett beers that compete for that title. So it won gold, and then recently at the World Beer Cup, something called Saison Peach or something like that won, also by Logsdon, won gold there, and that's instead of the pear juice, they put some peach juice in. So should be interesting. I'm curious to see how much of the pear kind of comes through, how much of the Brett kind of comes through as well. So and we have a gusher, of course, and I have no bucket, no nothing, so we're just gonna sit here and let it gush. Fun. Be right back. Okay, and we're back after a little cleanup. Haven't had a gusher in a while. I guess I'm becoming a little bit careless. Early on, I used to be ready for those and kind of had a bucket or something ready to go, or I would pour them very quickly, which is really what you should do. But haven't had a gusher in a while. You know, these bottle conditioned beers, especially Brett beers, definitely can, you know, overcarbonate is essentially what happens because they are bottle conditioned. These yeast are still working away, and especially Brettanomyces will chew through a much wider variety of sugars than regular brewer's yeast can. So brewer's yeast, you know, when it gets to a certain complexity of sugar, it can no longer kind of break them down and ferment them, where Brett just keeps working. So as you store one of these beers, Brett beers or wild beers, you know, a lot of times, you know, they can just continue to kind of carbonate. And that's also why you have them in these really thick, sturdy, almost champagne style bottles, because, you know, it needs to be able to put up with, you know, the added pressure. It's kind of interesting. I can see the yeast and stuff being pushed up out of the bottle as well. So I'm expecting this to be quite cloudy as a result. But let's go. Didn't actually lose much at all, so not too bad. And it's just me, so I'll give myself a nice healthy pour. And well, this could take a little while to settle down, so we'll see here. So almost like a orange, like a creamsicle color, like a really kind of hazy, murky yet bright orange here. Tons and tons of carbonation, as would be expected. In fact, you can see I don't know if you can see, but there's still bubbles every once in a while coming up and popping. So Brett, for those of you who haven't seen a lot of my other Brett shows before, Brett is a kind of shorthand or nickname for Brettanomyces, just easier to say. And it's, you know, quote unquote, well, at this point I think it's a semi-wild yeast. It's a yeast that exists in the wild, but at this point in America, you know, they've isolated specific types of Brettanomyces, and you can get them from a yeast lab and, you know, pitch a very pure strain of Brettanomyces. So is it really wild? Hard to say. You know, different types of Brett offer different flavors, but they're almost always earthy. I get earth and kind of barnyard. So let's see what we get here. You know, it's without a doubt, Brett is the predominant character here. So you do get some of that kind of hay, barnyard. Not too much, you know. Sometimes people can call it kind of horse blanket or mousy or something like that if it gets to be higher. But right now it's a pretty pleasant kind of straw or, you know, earthen nose to it. Some underlying fruit, like kind of like an orange, kind of like what it looks like I'm getting here. Just a general kind of dustiness to it. The dog is sawing logs hardcore. It's nice. There is definitely like a orange or like nectarine with a little bit of like nectarine pit in there as well. I get a little bit of like a rocky slate character in addition to that hay that I was getting on the nose. I get kind of like a wet rock as well. I also really like the mouthfeel. A lot of times on Brett beers or wild beers, they're very, very thin because there's absolutely no residual sugars to kind of beef up the body of the beer at all. Not the case here. It's nice and soft. You know, I wouldn't necessarily pick out a pear. In fact, you know, maybe peach more so, even though this is the pear one. But, you know, there is certainly like a fruity quality to it. Although if you told me there's pear in here, you know, you can kind of see if you can pick it out. Ends very dry, you know, almost not quite the words escaping me here, but it's not like wicking your, it's not astringent necessarily, but it's getting up there. And also it's got a nice little bit of bitterness, but it's like that kind of rocky mineral flavor with a little bit of bitterness as well. That makes this beer, I think, go really want food. Maybe some nice hard, you know, English cheddars, something like that would go really well, or maybe an aged Gouda, something like that would be really, really good with this beer. You could also go with something a little bit more funky to kind of play up to that Brett side of it, and that could be nice as well. Or, you know, even a main course would be good. But solid beer. I do like it quite a bit. I'm going to go 92 with this. You know, solid beer. Is it my favorite Brett beer of all time? No, but it's really good. And if you're in the Oregon area and have the opportunity to pick up some of these beers, they definitely have a lot of character and some personality to them, and it's always fun to kind of see different expressions of styles. And this is definitely much more of the, you know, true small Belgian farmhouse, you know, where they've got, you know, all their vessels are completely infected with Brettanomyces. You know, if you like beers like Fantôme, something like that, then this might be one for you. So there you have it, guys. Thanks as always for watching. You know, I've been getting a lot of emails from you guys lately, and I'm sorry that it takes me some time to get back to you, but I always try to do. And if I haven't gotten back to you, it's because it somehow escaped me. It's not because I didn't think you were worthy to get back to. So, you know, shoot me another email. That's about all for now. I've enjoyed this show. So, as I always say at the end, I've got some great beer to drink, and hopefully you do too.